How many of you out there at one point or another in your lives decided that something like this, being in a band, being a singer, would be something you would like to do? And I questioned whether I should ask for hands, but let's see your hands quickly. Let me see your hands. And the rest of you, what happened? Okay, I was one of those unfortunate people. I don't know. I haven't decided whether it's something beneficial or not at the end of the day. But I was one of those people who decided it would be a good idea to get out there and try and crack it in the music biz. And those terms are pretty contradictory. Music, business. And this is something I always start when I lecture to students. I talk to them about art versus business. And I say, you know, this is a major, major issue because one of the big problems that we face in South Africa is the fact that we don't have a large acceptance of our music. Okay, very debatable fact, but my opinion, working in the industry for a while, is the fact that we don't have a big acceptance of our music even in our own country. One of a big major problem. So I got into the industry when I was in a band in school. As you do, you kind of get exposed to, for example, my brother was playing guitar. And I thought this was a pretty cool thing back when I had hair and I could actually go get away with being a band member. And I saw my brother playing guitar and I decided, cool, let me give this a go. So I picked up a guitar. I thought it was a good way to pick up chicks. You know, if you've got a guitar in your hand, sure, they're going to think better of you. I wasn't particularly part of the big social group. I was kind of in the middle. I was not completely a nerd, but I wasn't very cool. So music seemed a really good thing to get into. So I picked it up from my brother. I started guitar lessons and, you know, went to guitar lessons. And it was something that really stuck in my brain, you know, that music was something I really wanted to do. And so I went to guitar lessons and it cropped up at one point or another to ask my guitar teacher whether it was a good idea to get into the music business. And he said, no, don't go do it. And, you know, you kind of get a little bit intimidated by this. You say, well, why can't I? I've got the talent. Surely I can make it in the music industry. And so life went on and started in a band and we started playing around and we started getting a bit of interest. And so I you know, got onto the same stage as a lot of the bigger bands. We were a fairly unknown group, but we were getting up there. The band fell up when the drummer decided to go and study at university. And he said music's not his thing, and he moved on. And I thought, okay, you know, losing somebody, and the guitarist and I stuck it out for a bit. I played bass and I did vocals at that time. And so I went on to university, and somewhere around that time, I remember going on holiday with my parents, and we were driving back from Plettenberg Bay. And I remember saying to my father, music is something I really want to do. I want to go out and do this as a living and so on. And he said to me, son, you'll never make a cent out of music. And from that day forward, I set out to prove him wrong. Thanks, Dad. And so I started to think about this quite seriously. How do I make money out of music? It wasn't something that was completely apparent to me. You know, and today, you know, back then we still talked about records. You know, do you remember what records were? You used to go and buy them at shops. Remember doing that? And, you know, you sell a lot of records, and that's how you make money, right? Okay? Well, you know, I decided, well, okay, that's something I'm going to start with. I'm going to learn how to sell records. So I decided, went to university, and of course, I didn't end up studying a Bachelor of Music degree. Maybe my life would have been different if I had. But I ended up being in a BCom. And maybe I was one of those strange people because I didn't really want to be there. But the parents were, no, you've got to have something to fall back on. Have you heard that one before? You've got to fall back on a degree, something that will actually help you. Well, it did help me. And so I studied my BCom and I went and, you know, applied everything that they were teaching us to the music industry. And surprisingly enough, when I'd finished a BCom, I'd walked out of there not knowing how to be in the music industry, okay? Now, you might find that, okay, fair enough, that's not their core focus. Art is not something that a BCom will concentrate on. Years later, I started lecturing on a Bachelor of Music degree, doing a business component for the first time. And I realized just how, if you do go into a Bachelor of Music degree, you walk out not knowing how to be in business. Okay, there's a very large disconnect between the two is what I realized. So I was studying at university. I finished university and had done a bit of research on the music industry as best I could. And I found the information to pull information out of the industry was a major issue. And with the grace of my parents, I was allowed to go and study sound engineering, because that's what you do. You get into a band, and theoretically you go on and study sound engineering straight away. But I finished my BCom, and I was one of the only sound engineers, students studying there who had done a BCom. And I started offering workshops to the sound engineering for guys that I was working with, and we did a few music business workshops just on what I knew at the time. And so with doing those workshops, I started putting together a whole lot of information, talking to other musos, finding out the problems and that sort of thing. And after I finished doing those workshops and studying sound engineering, I went back to university and I did my honors. And the only way I was going to do my honors was to study everything about music, to apply it completely to music. So I ended up finishing my honors. And the year after that, I started teaching a full-time course in music business. And during all of this time, I'd set up a recording studio and I'd started recording people and working with artists, and also, speaking to them about how they're going to progress in the industry. And there was one artist in particular, I thought she was really good. I heard her play, and I invited her to come back and record, and I gave her my terms of service. And within those terms of service, I stipulated things like, I'll take half your royalties and blah, 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 blah. And I got this phone call, and the guy said to me, "I'm a lawyer, and I have read your document, and it says blah, 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 blah. You're going to take half of royalties. You're going to own this. You're going to own that." And I was like, oh, I didn't realize there was a problem. It's what I thought, So I ended up going and approaching a lawyer myself. And I ended up losing the business. I lost the particular client, and she was Josie Field. She became a very big South African artist. And, from that point forward, I cannot lose business this way. If I'm going to set up a professional recording studio and so on. So I went and saw a lawyer, Mark Friedman, very decent guy. And he helped me to draft my terms of service for my business. And I said to him, is there not a way you can tell this stuff to a lay person and have them understand it? And let me tell you now, the answer to that question today is that it is very difficult to tell somebody how the industry works, okay? I've found it incredibly difficult because the industry is, funny enough, music is such an inherent thing. It belongs to us all. We all understand it in some one way or another. But how the industry works behind that is some mind-boggling minefield of misunderstanding and jumping through hoops. And, to learn about and discover all this stuff was a major issue. So I went on, finished university, started a course full-time, ran my recording studio part-time, and started gathering information. And while doing my honors, I again found it very, very difficult. When you go and approach people and you ask how it works, they'll go, "This is how I think it works. This is how I think it works." No one actually knew how it worked. And I found out very quickly that people generally don't know how it works. And imagine this multi-billion rand industry. The last research I did placed the music industry on its own at about 2.3 billion in revenue per year. And imagine this whole industry run by people where there was no formal business training for them. Okay, and maybe I'm jumping on a lot of toes, but this is what happens. You'll go do your BA or something like that, and you end up running a record company, and you don't actually know how the business works. So everybody sort of plows through, trying to understand. It's not a massive, at the top strata is where all the money sits, and at the bottom strata, everybody else struggles to survive. And you'll find that within that bottom strata, where I've been working most of the time, it's very difficult for somebody, to afford lawyers' fees and so on. And it becomes very difficult for people to understand how they work. So I put all this information together and started teaching it back and started wondering why. Why am I the only person doing this? And as for what I saw at the time, there might have been workshops that I heard about and that sort of thing, and it was never done on a large scale, it's never formalized. And I asked myself, why is this information not available? And we could go into conspiracy theories, and I kind of see it this way. If you run a business, imagine your suppliers giving you stock and they have no clue. Imagine your suppliers have no clue. What are you going to do? Cool, I'm in business. If I can get this stock for free or next to free, I'm going to do that. And the industry all over the world has run on this idea that creators, the people that actually make the music at the end of the day, they don't need to know. They just need to go and create. And they've been losing out like that for years. And so I asked myself, why has this information never been available? Okay, I pondered this question coming up to talk. I'm not actually entirely sure. But as I said, if you can get away with it, you most likely will. Are music publishers and record labels evil? The answer is no. They're just bloody good business people. And unless the entire industry at every level learns to work together and work with the same understanding, that is the only way that the music industry will be able to formalize itself and move forward. There was a meeting earlier this year with the president, and the conclusion of this meeting was, guys, organize yourself, because you're not organized. And, you know, the whole thing is if you can start talking the same language, putting information out there, and getting people to work together and understand the music industry will grow. Everybody will benefit for it. What else do I have on my notes? I think I've covered almost everything. There's a lot of pitfalls that artists fall into. You know, they often get locked into contracts. You know, they often get loaned money, which then is repaid through the records that they produce. Managers take advantage of them. All these different issues can be easily solved if people go out into the industry understanding the industry. So my biggest thought today is that the music industry is about creating music entrepreneurs. Thank you very much.